briefly, my take on things is I'm going to be talking about earth energies and how I think, my view, how I think ancient man used them more for setting up things. And I'll explain what I mean in a minute. Going back to what John was saying about our knowledge, etc. My background was in, after many years in BT, was designing digital telephone exchanges with pure logic circuits. So you've got that on one side of your brain, that's the left brain taken care of, logic circuits, and the right hand brain, you're doing dowsing, healing, palmistry, all the other stuff. So keeping that together, without one side overriding the other, is quite difficult. But what I did find is one side will work and the other side will just throw in the question, etc., just to check where you're going. So when we're writing business plans for films, is one of the things we actually do, the logic side says write a nice firm business plan, and the right side of the brain is throwing in odd comments and things just to make it a bit more marketable. Things like that. So when I'm doing things, I'm thinking, yeah, that's the logical way of doing it, but what am I actually looking at? When we actually look at the terms we use, whether it's alignments, sight lines, dragon paths, spirit paths, ley lines, and so on, all of those terms are rather wonderful. And as you probably know, and found to your cost at various times, in certain situations, they've been the subject of either discussion or outright argument over a pint as to whether they exist or whether it's our imagination or not. And I've had all sorts of discussions like that with people. My view is what you see out there now and what you go around and measure, photograph and so on, is the finished product. What I'm going to be looking at is how did they set them up in the first place? How do they produce these alignments? And I'm going to give you I'm going to demonstrate 3 ways of producing earth currents here. First one's going to be using an inanimate object. The second one's going to be using 2 broom handles and 2 volunteers that I've yet to pick from the front here. And the third one's actually going to be a pure intent one of forcing a line between 2 inanimate objects up here just by thought power alone. I can see you all looking around thinking we're on a TV show here, aren't we? This is what we're going to do. The other aspect that I find, and it goes back to what John was saying, is it's knowledge that we've got. And I think sometimes when we actually look around at things, there is that knowledge there, and it's very easy to ignore it, let it go, and it's gone. So that's why I like doing it. I work with, we did a political thing, you may still see it around, it's on the telly at times, called Bite for the Ballot. We use a lot of young interns, and I've had them all out. We came back from Cardiff Assembly, and I stopped the minibus at Avebury and had them wandering around in the dark with dowsing rods, and they were just fascinated by the whole thing. You know, so they've gone away with that idea. I don't say you should take all these young people out in the dark and lose them. Although, you know, sometimes some of them do. But in actual fact, it's when I take them there, show them, and then they've got it up there. Even if they don't use it immediately, they want to use it up there. So, what we're going to do, like I say, we're going to set up 3 demonstrations. And it's always an experiment. I'll make that point now. Just up the road from here, you've got Ruton Village. And based in Ruton Village, there's a Morris team called the Hartley Morris Men. You may have heard of them. A bunch of singers and dancers, etc. John knows them, they're And May Day morning, which isn't that far away, on the 1st of May, they dance at a little site up there, the Cauldron Stones. I don't know if any of you have been to the Cauldron Stones? Yeah. No, Cauldron Stones. May Day morning, they go there and dance. Now, that is on a physical alignment, which runs all right from Sussex, goes up through the Cauldron Stones. There used to be a little chapel at the top of Bluebell Hill. And now it disappeared with the roadworks, unfortunately, but it went through there. It goes through the church at Newnham, which is the one famous for the stone with the devil's footprint. But not only have you got that physical alignment, you've actually got a nice earth current which runs all the way up through there as well. I've been there and measured the earth energy and its default position. It's static. And the nearest I can get it to is a half an inch. Half an inch wide. It doesn't disappear altogether, it's still there. I've got it to about half an inch. I remember telling a historian who was arguing with me that that half an inch we actually consider the megalithic centimetre. You've got to go how many colours he went before he realised I'm winding them up. It happens, doesn't it? But feel free to use that one, by the way. I like that one. However, they dance, the Morris men gather there from 6 o'clock onwards, and if it's a Saturday morning, and it's a nice day, we can have an audience of up to 150 people there, which is quite good, you know, for that time of the morning. And they dance from about 5:30 till 6. While they're getting ready, this is the interesting thing, by about 5:15 in the morning, when they're putting their stuff on and the bells and the ribbons and the audience is gathering and the excitement's building, that earth energy grows to about 4 foot wide. By the time they start dancing at 6:30, it's about 8 foot wide. Half an hour later, when they finished, it's actually the Wicked dance site, which is what, 60 odd foot across. And that's just with one group dancing there. That power going into that earth energy that exists. Now, the thing is, we don't know. One thing we don't know is whether or not that opens up as a pulse slowly moving down the actual alignment, or whether it opens up instantaneously along its width. The reason we've never found out is because if you're going to get up that time in the morning, you want to go and watch the dancing, not stand in the field with the gardens. That's the main reason. But we will have to measure that one day. That stays there, that wide, starts to decay, takes about 4 to 5 days to decay back to nothing, which is quite interesting. So again, the way I look at it is when the ancient man set up these temporary earth currents for surveying purposes, once it was done, if you needed them there, we use the old knocking on the rock technique to fix them. Failing that, leave them and they just disappear. Now that bunch of men who I'm talking about, the Hartley Morris men, being disturb the scene here. They belong to the Morris Ring of England. And when you join the Morris Ring of England, you get one of these. And it's basically a stick, painted white with red tape on. And that is basically the staff of office. Now, this one actually was loaned to me by the North British sword team, because this is completely unadorned, and that's what it looks like. That's what the original one looks like when you join the Morris Ring of England. The group I'm talking about, the Hartley Morris men, being a bunch of posers that they are. I've modified theirs to include the blue, so they've got their full colours, and at each end and in the middle they've got silver caps with all the names of the officers and the years they've served. So what you've got there is a 60 odd year history of a Morris team. That's all it is though, it's basically a stick with tape on there and some silver. And what I'm going to do is actually, I'll put it down the side. What I'm actually going to do is put it down over here. Make sure there's no earth currents down there. I'll put it down. I'll tell you what, I'll put it down to you, right? And then it can, although it's down the side, it can stay there all day out of everybody's way, but you can all measure it to see if anything happens. Yeah, just stick it down. That's it. And then we'll check that later on to see if anything happens. If nothing happens, well, that's the talk over. Interestingly enough, when we tested this one to see if anything happened with this, you're going to be surprised actually, because what I'm going to do, This one has not been adorned, but it's actually owned by, say, the North British Sword Team. And when you actually go across it, I'll just lay that across there. You can, and you feel free to actually do this. There you go. And they start pushing out the. Amazing, that isn't it, really? When you see that one down there, how powerful that gets, and hopefully by the end of the day, that's going to go out through the walls, etc. So we'll come back to why we think that works. Any questions so far? Feel free to ask questions. I don't regard questions as harassment. Some people do.
You know, you said when they were up on the Coldham Stones and the width increased, was that due to the activity of the people up there, or was it the time of the day? Or was it a combination of both?
Could be a combination of both. I mean, we have been up there on other days just to have a route around, just to make sure that it is, as you say, circumstance, and it hasn't gone out there. So I think it's down to the activities, the thought processes, the excitement building up, the crowd gathering, and that energy being around. But also, one interesting thing is how long it takes to actually decay and just melt away, which is, again, one of the things. So, if these aren't needed, once these alignments are set up, these surveying lines, as I call them, are set up, once they're done, then you don't actually, if you don't need them, just take the power away, for want of a better term, and you just watch it disappear. Or again, if they're in the wrong place, you can move it, and that one goes, and you're using this one now. So there's got to be times, clever as they were, there could have been times when they just adjusted them for different reasons. Now, we have here 2 broom handles, not 4 candles. 2 broom handles. What I'm actually going to do is lay these down on the floor, and we could do it up here. We could do it up here actually. I'll just make sure there's no. Have we got any actual natural dowsers here? I just want to volunteer. There you go. Yeah. It's worth it for the walk, isn't it? The walk power.
It is actually. I'll do my heavy metal stretch. I've got a set of the Hamish Miller books.
Have you really?
Yeah, so I'll go and get them later.
Brilliant, yes. What I want to do is, I want to set up here, but I want to make sure there's nothing there.
Where do you want me?
If you just come in. What's your name, by the way?
Dave.
Dave. Good looking bloke in the glasses.
Adonis is my middle name.
Yeah, modesty is mine. Yeah, just make sure if there's nothing there, then what I can actually do. Yeah, just to make sure when you put these down, we're not actually going across the.
Show me the earth energy on the next few feet. Tell me when to stop.
I'll stop soon now.
You was all tempted though, wasn't you? Especially with Dave Sheep.
Right, I'm just going to put those end to end, and that the idea is we just want someone to walk up and down either side, and it will generate. Well, we'll see what happens, shall we?
Show me the next line of energy.
Right. Just beginning in there, is it? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Cool. Now, I think what I used to do is you could actually do this. Just put them down like this. Walking up and down in time. Going to make my own way line. That's not bad on the square line, is it?
They detected slightly your aura energy.
Yes.
Must be pulsing away. I've never had that before. Just twitched slightly. Either that or be.
It's that natural aftershave, is it?
Doesn't work.
Okay. That's done enough of that. I'm fed up with that already. Right. So if you hang on there, Dave, I've got one more task. So I've got a rod over there throbbing away. We've got 2 broomsticks here. This is like something out of Blue Peter, isn't it? Lots of sticky back plastic here.
Where did you park yours then?
Now, what we're going to do, let's go for a beer, shall we?
Yes.
Come on. What you're going to do is going to put these to one side there. Right. Could you, Dave, just check to make sure there's nothing going on? There's nothing going on. There's nothing on the edge there.
Show me any energies that are on the edge.
Whoa!
No, well, there's something in
Yeah.
this from.
I think
No,
it's
this
on
is. If I can speak.
Yep, sorry.
No, sorry, one minute, hijack that. A couple of years ago, I had a masterclass in dowsing from Pat Toms, who is an incredible dowser and was able to show the difference between a concave and a convex corner, and why some were just certain shapes. Once you were tuned in, it took a few minutes to get tuned in, but you've never seen anything like it. So I'm not surprised that the rods are picking up something from the edge, which may not be an earth energy, but it is an energy.
Okay.
Sorry.
What I'll put these in a little bit then. And then what I'm going to do, I won't put them too far away because. Right, no,
Just show the energies between the two.
yeah, I'm going to ask that I can actually form an energy line between those two tankards. And this is the really experimental one because normally to do this you have a almost 100% concentration. But I'm doing this in the middle of a presentation, so we'll see what happens. So bear with me on this one. So we're just going to see what happens now. I'll ask for an energy line to go between those two. Let's see what happens.
Are you insured if I fall off, Lawrence?
Depends who you land on. It might take a while to get that one going.
There's something pulsing at the back, probably from you. I can feel it in my hand.
Try. Under the terms of my asthma, I shouldn't do that.
Show the energy line between the two beer cans. Do that one again. Show the energy line between the two beer cans, or beer tankards.
Thank you, Dave. Lovely.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Here, Dave.
I'll just give you this.
That'd be super. That'd be super. That's what I'll do. Actually, I know Lawrence is down. I'm just going to ask Lawrence to just see if that's that one down there is pushing out line. Oh no, just follow it right where it was. Sorry. Here, then. Is it still pushing way out that way? Yeah, that's all right, yeah, we should be able to measure it out, so it's still going
Still
way out.
crossing.
Lovely.
Still crossing. Where did they go before?
No, that's it. Then what we'll do, when we have a break, we'll look outside, and we should be carrying on outside. Thank you, Lord.
So where did they go before you did that?
Where did they go?
Oh, it's expanded.
Well, what was happening, wherever you put that stick down, it's going to start pushing out the energy line. It's one of those things. So I think, so what we've actually got is a staff of office down there, pushed out a line. Now, if you think about it, the reason I've come up with 3 different methods is because I think when they were setting things up, this is my view again, when they're setting things up, they had different needs at that particular time. By that I mean, when they were setting up the first line out of a group of alignments, you use the staff. Now, like I say, it's the staff of office. But imagine a wizard. Put down his staff like that. I want to go there. He may have someone at the other end directing him, but once it's done, that's it. That's the line going out there, dead straight across country. I don't believe that with wizards they just went zap, which is this sort of cartoon thing. Somewhere down the line that changed into a more active version of, instead of the wizard or the wise man, the hope of the saint, whoever it was putting this rod down and just firing off this line, it changed into this more active thing. A bit like in the very early days, all pirates spoke like sailors. I mean, Robert Newton came along, didn't he, in Treasure Island, and after that everybody had to go, ha, you the rest of it. And from that moment on, no pirate sounded convincing unless he was doing pirate speak. It's one of those things. So, somewhere down the line it changed. Now, if you, I mean, that staff down there is what, 60 years old? Okay, the wood may be older, but the point is, it's got a 60-year-old history down there. For the almost foundation laying, stone laying ceremony of starting an alignment off, you can imagine, I can imagine the holy man, the priest, the wizard, gathering the clan around and starting the thing off power. Because also in those days I would suspect that they are actually more able to detect earth currents themselves. Now and then I go out to see my daughter in Adelaide, and because in Australia the Neolithic man lived mainly in the centre, whereas all the immigrants live around the outside, on the beach, you have a situation where there's very few earth currents on the outside, very few. Where there's churches and such like, they're obviously building their own. But you go around there, dowsing around there, there's very little at all. But you, to the point where you almost feel it as you walk past something. And one of my daughter's friends, Lucy, when she comes home, because she's an expat, she's a therapist out there, when she comes home, well, out there it takes her a long time to ground herself after a session with someone. Coming home, as she steps off the plane, she describes it as wearing diving boots. We've got so much energy, it's, oh yes, I'm home. Just feel grounded straight away. So, I think for starting things off, they used that method. And the staff probably had lots of magic symbols carved into it, etc. Could be hundreds of years old, handed down, and so on. And even the Aborigines, where the wise man there is pointing the bone at someone, he just points the bone and the job done. Nothing covered out at the end of it. What about this one though? Why two broom handles? You've seen it's demonstrated, it's producing a line, it's coming out the end. I'm just going to do an imitation now and see if I want you to tell me who it reminds you of. Right. It's a chalk figure. Yeah. What is he now called? The long man of Wilkinson. But my view with this one is, he actually had, you get two people and you can actually work out squares and things. And my belief is based on, is it Tully or Tully? Who's the mathematician that came out with a spiral, started at Silbury Hill with a spiral? Sorry? That's it. And he shows all these alignments come around with everything in either isosceles or equilateral triangles, going all the way around. Fabulous. Two people with these. I think these were the field workers. They were sent out to do the alignments out there. So the high priest, whoever, set up there. And then, once he was going, the other chaps are set out with their poles to actually do the alignment. Now, standing like that, it's often thought that they put one down and usually have one to the side, but in actual fact they could have just laid it down and puff off it flies. their own little ritual down there. We did an experiment in the middle of Bruton Town Centre with the Morris men. We doused the actual village centre and worked out where the drains and pipes were, and then got a team to dance. Got one team to dance and the other team to douse afterwards. After they finished dancing, right down the centre of where they were dancing, this line just appeared. Disappeared after a while, but that line, the energy current was there. So, if, my view, once they're out there, these people wandered around, making sure the alarms are square, etc. And because one of the nice things is whenever I show that, I'm saying, like I say, sadly unopened, but we've got some pictures of some of the alignments he's actually shown. And I've shown it to people, and they come. The arguments usually come down in one of two forms. One is, how did ancient man have the knowledge to work out isosceles, the equilateral triangles? How did they have this mathematical knowledge? And I, as you probably know, one of the myths, I like myths, one of the myths is that the mathematical knowledge used in the Mediterranean came from an island off the coast of Brittany, Brittany. Who knows? I'm a great believer in when there is a myth, there's just something else behind that. A bit like the statues on Easter Island. One of the myths is that they actually walked from the quarry to where they're situated. They've been dragged, they've been towed, they've been on sledges, and then a group of people went down there, stood one up, put ropes around its neck, got it wobbling, and then just twisted it and walked it along. And I don't know if you've ever seen the video of it, it's quite fascinating to watch one of these statues just walking. Same way as you or I would actually get a wardrobe into place or a fridge under the unit. They were doing that with these statues. So I always think where there's a myth, there's a little bit of truth there, but it's almost as though it's been marketed out of the way. They do with it. So what about this one then? It's just putting something there with willpower. My view is once you've got to the end of your alignments and you're just finishing it off, so everybody's involved, rather than the holy man, the wizard, actually putting in the last line, imagine gathering the whole tribe, the clan around and say, right, we want you all to just do this now, and everybody thinks, let's put that line in, and it becomes theirs. So they own that as well, they're part of the ceremony. So what could you do? Well, the one I've done over there, which is just an ornate version of this, you could actually take your local darts team, club, family, do your put your names on there, even with computer printed labels, paint it in your team colours, and you've got a staff which will push out a line. So wherever you put it down, off it goes. How marvellous, you can create your own lines wherever you go. Careful where you point them. Yes, sir.
A friend of mine who is a master dowser moved house, and in his garden was a large stone. And he thought, well, I'm taking that, I'm not letting the workmen do winding the road. So he put it in his garage, and then when he doused later, he found the ley lines had moved to the stone in the garage in Hampstead.
Ah!
Yeah. What was that?
So he'd actually taken the...
So we could crush the stone and just chuck it in the back of the van. And he said, well, I'll take that, we don't want it. And put it in his garage and doused later. The earth energies would follow the stone.
Follow the stone. It shows you the power of that stone, doesn't it? You know, but the chances are that stone could have been used for other purposes in the past and retains that energy in there. But I like the idea of actually being able to, if you like, douse as you go, but actually prove on the way. What we'll do, I mean, lunchtime, I've got lots of dowsing rods here if anybody wants to borrow anybody, or if you're selling that fire, I'm here. Good marketing. But what we want to do is actually, when we're at lunchtime, are you still doing the all to the chestnuts?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, okay. So lunchtime out there, we can actually experiment with this, put stuff down, and just try it. Just see what happens out there. Just see what you can actually do. If you can do it, they must have done it, or been able to have done it, as it were. So, my actual take on it is that these lines were set up. If they were needed to be kept, they were converted to permanent lines. If they weren't, they were just allowed to decay, or if they needed realignment, just move them around. And the old one would just die away. Please.
Another question, just a point about that staff with the red lines around. I was just reading in Leyhunters Empire book, it mentioned that the barber's pole, what that looks like.
Yes.
He says that he thinks it originally, because the barbers used to originally be surgeons, that it originally came from the caduceus, the symbol of healing, with the staff of the surgeons.
That's it.
And it's a healing symbol, so also the symbol of Hermes, the magician, and so on. So maybe there's a connection there.
One of the things, and I think you're absolutely right, because one of the things you find out, usually the hard way, is that the people that set up things often put their own hidden symbology into it, and people take it away without realising. So it's thought that when the people set up the Morris Ring of England back in 1934, the reason it was done like this was because the guy that actually designed this thought to himself, I'm going to put a bit of symbolism in there which nobody else will realise at the time. See.
Digging back distant talk 2 or 3 years ago, mentioning that the curls might be the same alignment as the helical DNA, in which case originally they would have been at 35 degrees. Thinks 35 degrees, so they must have had, as you were trying to point out, an absolute in-depth knowledge that we're only just discovering now. 35 degrees, I think, is the crucial.
And that actually backs up the point we're making, because one of the things I believe, what I liked about that guy's work, the mathematician, is the fact that for once you've actually got a booklet in there which backs up what we believe, what we know, what we see out there, what we come across. Rather than, how many times have you turned on telly to watch or talk about everything from Leys to Stonehenge to whatever, within 10 minutes you're getting aggravated because the person on there is just putting stuff down or very negative or debunking what you believe in and such like this. You think, oh no, just another one. So
if you get a piece of brass tube about a foot long and cement like with a Reldex, cotton thread like you might have on a curtain full at 35 degrees, you can actually feel energy coming out of that pond, and it's a rock accumulator. I've actually done that in an experiment with kids.
pretty term, yeah. Thank you.
Well, you prompted me, thank you.
No, what we're here to do. We're here to do. So again, why here? Why now? Why did all this happen? This particular chap, when he actually started looking at alignments, was convinced that somewhere down the line there was actually a link between all these ancient sites. Because at first they do look random, and one of the things that's used against what we believe with values, etc., is that you can have computer-generated random lines, and they've done this with maps. They pick them out, and say, oh, you know, we've got a line here. Oh, it's 3 Walruses in a row, or there's 4 betting shops in a row. They've done this, and even to the point where, do you remember the series that used to be on the telly with Arthur C. Clarke? Used to open up with El Crystal Skull, and he'd walk along the beach in Sri Lanka saying, "I invented the communication satellite." And the unspoken bit next was, "So ancient man was a savage." I mean, one of the things they did there was take a field, bury some big drums full of water in the field, play out others so they couldn't see it, got a group of dowsers and they couldn't find anything. Where did they get these dowsers from? I must have gone down to Labour Exchange. You ever done dowsing? Oh yeah, it's one of those. It's all about the negative side. So when you get someone doing the positive side, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And that gives us a boost as well. So why do we actually missed the point. I think part of the problem is because we actually are focused in one direction, not the other. And again, some of the stuff that's actually put out that Ancient Man used, because we can't believe he was that clever, we actually missed the point. But I think they were. I think they could see. They actually knew what they were doing a lot better than we actually give them credit for. So, that being the case, why is there so much activity out there? Why such a big spirals, and why so much? Why do you think there is so much earth currents out there from the ancient sites? Why do they carry on doing this? Why do they need so much? Any thoughts?
They were well used in the past.
Yes.
Can I just add, when you do the prompting thing again, then I'd love to respond later. Or shall I wait until you...
No, please do.
There's two things that strike me about myself, is that once I found a cosy corner, it's familiar to me. I don't want to come away from it. And like, I had a really strange guy who was, I used to be a mental health worker, and this person was supposed to be psychotic, but he was amazing, as were all my patients, you know. Lovely people. He said, Anthony, get out from the valley, get up on the ridge. It's real smelly down there. The air's fresh up there, and you can see much further.
That's absolutely right.
So we hold ourselves, I hold myself back.
No. It's what we do. And some of the when I've taken people to places, when they get there, they're sort of blown away by what actually happens. But they have to experience it, first of all. I took a whole group down to, where was we going? That's right, it was a Morris team, and we were going down to the West Country, and the guy driving us said, can we go down by Stonehenge? Yeah, if you like, no problem. Or we could go down the A4 and go via Avebury. To which the question was, what's Avebury? How many times have you had that? What's Avebury? Took the team down there, and it was amazing, just blew people away because they'd never felt that kind of energy before. And one of our guys, he was amazing, he turned into a Chinook. I can remember him standing there. He was standing there at a slight angle going, Dave, what's happening? I said, well, you can't take off because you haven't got permission, that's the first thing. Don't be in trouble with the authorities. And he found himself a nice little portal there, and he was just, say he was so open to it, yeah, he was just away. But eventually we got people working out. I mean, look at what happens. I was talking about the cauldron stones. You've got a dozen, 15, 18 Morris men, half hour dancing, and they produce a ley line 60 foot across. Okay. What happens if you took a side like Avebury, which is alternate lozenge and upright stones, like a generator, a couple of thousand dancers dancing for 2 or 3 days, weaving in and out the stones with this continuous ritual going on, feeding people, continuous ritual. How much energy must that push out? You wouldn't have needed fertilisers or anything, would you? Just go out there. Sorry. Please.
The thought keeps popping up about Bresson dancing. Have you been to Brittany?
No, I haven't actually.
Well, when they have these fest nozzies and days nozzies, daytime dancing sessions and nighttime ones, and they dance in circles, and they sort of wind in and out and tight to the middle and then out again, and the energy there is just like you say when you arrive there and there's not so many people there, and you can feel it building up as people arrive. But when they're actually dancing, it's unbelievable.
I know the tune I use, the Horse's Brawl, it's called. It's one of the tunes I use.
Ah.
Yeah, the Horse's Brawl. Really lovely tune. As my friend said, he said, I I don't like the French, but that's half Breton, which makes it half Celtic, which makes it half Irish, which makes it all right. Yes, David.
Just wondered, have you done the one where water has a memory?
Yes.
Yeah, it was all-
Yeah, with the anger and the yeah.
It's always good.
You can talk about that one later. So, any questions what we're talking about so far? I mean,
Has it been studied over time? Do people find that the energy has grown, you know, as time year now? I mean, not way back, but in the last sort of 20 to 30
yeah.
years. We found it has, from what we've done, seems to be getting more powerful in the same size.
One of the things we actually found is that with when we've been out there, I can remember going to various sites and the energy felt there, and that feels stronger. And I think there's an awareness. As people are more aware, and also there's a need as well. People are looking for something other than the purely material world, for whatever better term.
One of the pleasures I get when I run the group is when someone brings me out of the blue and says, "Excuse me, what do you actually do?" You know, and eventually you feel up saying to them, "You think there's something there in the stones, don't you?" "Well, yes, I do." "And you're frightened of being laughed at, aren't you?" "Yes." "Well, you're not alone. Come and meet the other nutcases. There is something." And it's one of the pleasures I get at the group when you entice someone to come along. And I say, you've made the first step, you've made the important step. For fear of ridicule, you are still here. Come and meet like-minded people. And it really does make a lot of it worthwhile.
Yeah. In fact, our first meeting's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous, isn't it? I am a dowser. I don't care. So, what we actually talked about there, all I've done is actually just brought you, I've given you 3 examples. There's going to be others. There'll be others you can use, but we can actually go out there and lunchtime and try these. You can see them for yourselves. The reason I use 2 tankards, so I just happen to have 2 tankards. One thing we've actually done it with is 2 house bricks or 2 lovely bits of the old screen walling type thing. But put it out prominent and just think the thought, and it's there. Which as a registered healer, we do have some healing and send good thoughts to people, which is fair enough. Why not? So it's all part of the same thing. I mean, the last time I was in, I can't believe it's that long ago, 8 years. Oh, 8 years. Amazing. The show I put on then included a friend of mine who had a bad ley line running through, and an energy line, a negative energy line running through his garden in Erith. Since then, we actually cleared the line, we've done everything else, and his garden flourished, and everybody's happy. Even his neighbours have cheered up because he used to go right through their house. You know, that's still a bit bonkers, but it's one of those things. But it does have an impact on you. One of the last ones we did was actually a house in just trying to think where it is now, on the way down to Broadstairs on the left. And in that particular place, the architect, this is interesting, it was an architect designed house. It was a last corner plot. And there was stuff happening in the house. And his children were falling ill. Pets weren't doing very well. When you stood there on a bright day like today with windows shut, you could feel this draft going across your face. TV would change channels while you were looking at it. And he said, "I think there's something going on here." And you think, "I'm bloody sure there is." But I was working with a wonderful medium called Gaynor Thompson. I don't know if anybody remember Destiny's in Rochester High Street.
Yes.
Yes, I remember.
Well, Gaynor,
Yeah.
who used to run that shop,
Yes.
fully trained medium, I was working with Gaynor.
Oh.
And she's working inside the house, and I'm on the day outside shutting down the lines that are feeding this place. Birchington, that was it, Birchington. And she's saying, "Do you want to see what's coming out of the walls?" "No." "I'll be out there, all right." Well, what happened was the architect said, "Why is it my house?" "Well, I don't know. But it was on 2 dotted lines. But Gaynor then said, well, why am I getting metal? Why am I getting iron and steel and metal? Why metal? I said, is it the rods I'm using to shut down the line? She went, no, it's not in the house. And we went upstairs, and he said, what's behind that beam? What's behind there? He said, that's the girder, holds the house up. And being a modern architect designed house, with a corner plot, the whole roof section is just a metal frame. And then the purlins, everything else is bolted to that. So you've got this metal structure sitting on top of his house. I said to him, is it earthed? He said, no, it doesn't have to be, it's double insulated, I think if you earth that down, that will actually solve a lot of problems, because we've actually got this big area up there, tracking stuff. That's the negativity side. The church it went through, they used to change the ministers there would change every 3 weeks. Arrive with all these ideas, I want to do this, I want to do that for 3 weeks, I don't understand it. So just to recap what I've done here, we've got that stick which is we're going to leave there, and we should be able to trace it outside. We've done the long man of Wimbledon. Okay. We've done the thought power through there, and if you wish to, we've got some other data rods here to borrow or over there to buy. Don't want to take away anybody's marketing here. So, any questions? I apologise for the PowerPoint, which would have saved me talking so much. Stuff happens, doesn't it? Right? Stuff happens.
I've just got something to mention. In my large garden in the house I had years ago, we were plotting it with a surveyor, and he was looking for. He said, I need to know where the drains are. Well, I knew roughly where the manhole cover was. It was under about a foot of humus. So I said, hang on a minute. We're busy digging, so I ran off and got my rods. And I knew where to look. Very, very quickly found the manhole cover, and I said, that one goes out the lawn, and you plotted it. And then I said to him, you didn't turn a hair when I did this. You're familiar with this. This is a qualified surveyor. He said, well, we don't actually like to admit it, but it is used in private. So it's more widespread than given credit for.
Yeah, because I know it goes on, but I can't really.
Yeah, no.
So any questions? Yes, sorry.
Wood for the
Sticks?
Particular wood is special?
No, I think they just use some dowling, just ordinary dowling. But there may well be. I must admit, I don't actually know, and because it's completely painted, so I can't really tell.
Okay.
But again, if it works with this, you want someone who knows what wood's made of. Don't know what that is.
David?
Just,
Sorry, I've got this young lady here, come on.
just a quick question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to point that out, just zap. You're now under my control.
That aerial thing, when you earth the aerial down,
Yeah.
the metallic structure down, did you follow up with that? Did it find out?
Yeah, when it cleared it overnight, overnight.
Right.
And all he did was just take it into his lighting circuit, which is earthed anyway. So the point is, he made a connection, gone. So, yeah, just one of those things. Just be aware that you've got this big structure there, sitting there, gathering stuff. You know. Johnny.
Yes, it's what I refer to as the ice cream syndrome. It's where so many people visit ancient sites, and this is just purely and simply a subjective view, is that they go along because they've seen it in a guidebook or they've been advised of it by the local tourist office or whatever it may be. They go there as a drove, they wander around rather quickly, sort of kicking the odd bit, and then they go off, and as I say, looking for the ice cream van. As a result, they provide so much negative energy to these sacred sites that they're taking away things. And I think there's, for me, that if you visit one of these sites, it's about giving as well as receiving. And if you like, saying thank you for that opportunity to share in it.
And you're absolutely right, because that is one of the reasons why I think when you actually go to Stonehenge seems to suck everything in. I've done a dawn ceremony with a Wicca group there, and I dare for what they did. They did this one amazing ceremony, in bulk, the February thing. Amazing ceremony. I stood there in Stonehenge. I was allowed to go as an observer rather than take part, and watching the sun come up between two stones that way, and the moon go down between two stones. This is fabulous. And within 20 minutes, all that energy's gone. Because I think when people go to Stonehenge, they expect something bigger, and therefore, oh. Whereas when you get to something like Avebury, because it's more of a shock, how big's this place? Wow. Is that it over there, the other side of the sofa? And I think that's why Avebury tends to benefit, as you say, from the positive aspect of, my goodness, this is fabulous, rather than, oh, is that it, type situation. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
That's interesting you said that, because I went to a place in Brittany. It was, there were 3 big stones, one very big one standing up, one smaller one, and another fatter one to the left, and then there was another big one lying down, so there'd obviously been more there. And when I went, I just thought, I'll douse down the path to see how much energy is coming up. And I was literally as close to as this edge of that table is before the energy came off the big stone. And then while I was there, I had a good look round and everything, talk to the stones like I do. And when I came away, before I came away, there was a young couple came down with 2 small children, and the children climbed on the stones and had a lovely time, and then they wandered off in the opposite direction, so there must have been another path, because I saw them later on a different road. And as I doused on the way back, I backed all the way up the path, and the energy came out. Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So you can have people coming there not realising what they're at, but still somehow giving that, raising good energy.
Okay, do you want me to wrap up, Lawrence?
Yes. Whenever you're ready, David. Whenever you're ready.
Well, despite that, pleasant invitation to continue. Now, any more questions? Other than why?
Sorry, can you just clear it up? Are you saying that all the energy lines in Britain were put there by ancient men, or they just used energy that was...
I think there were others that were there that arrived naturally. The ones that we see and that we go out and measure are actually were put there deliberately. Yeah, deliberate alignments. Anyway, so thank you. I apologise for the PowerPoint. Thank you for listening and having the patience to deal with me, and good luck the rest of the day. You've got good how many colours he went before he realised I'm winding him up. It happens, doesn't it? But feel free to use that one, by the way. I know that one. However, they dance. The Morris men gather there from 6 o'clock onwards, and if it's a Saturday morning and it's a nice day, we can have an audience of up to 150 people there, which is quite good, for that time of the morning. And they dance from about 5:30 till 6. While they're getting ready, this is the interesting thing, by about 5:15 in the morning, when they're putting their stuff on and the bells and the ribbons and the audience is gathering and the excitement's building, that earth energy grows to about 4 foot wide. By the time they start dancing at 6:30, it's about 8 foot wide. Half an hour later, when they've finished, it's actually the Wicked dance, which is 60 odd foot across. And that's just with one group dancing there. That power going into that earth energy that exists. Now, the thing is, we don't know. One thing we don't know is whether or not that opens up as a pulse slowly moving down the actual alignment, or whether it opens up instantaneously along its width. The reason we've never found out is because if you're going to get up that time in the morning, you want to go and watch the dance. We've got Rooton Village, and based in Rooton Village there's a Morris team called the Hartley Morris Men. You may have seen, heard of them. A bunch of singers and dancers, etc. John knows them, they're out there. And May Day morning, which isn't that far away, on the 1st of May, they dance at the little site up there, the Cauldron Stones. I don't know if any of you have been to the Cauldron Stones? No, the Cauldron Stones. Monday morning, they go there and dance. Now, that is on a physical alignment, which runs all the way from Sussex, goes up through the Cauldron Stones. There used to be a little chapel at the top of Bluebell Hill. Remember it? And now it disappeared with the roadworks, unfortunately, but that little it went through there. It goes through the church at Newnham, which is the one famous for the stone with the devil's footprint. But not only have you got that physical alignment, you've actually got a nice earth current which runs all the way up through there as well. I've been there and measured the earth energy and its default position. It's static. And the nearest I can get it to is a half an inch. Half an inch wide. It doesn't disappear altogether, it's still there. I've got it to about half an inch. I remember telling a historian who was arguing with me that that half an inch we actually consider the megalithic centimetre. Briefly, my take on things is I'm going to be talking about earth energies and how I think, my view, how I think ancient man used them more for setting up things. And I'll explain what I mean in a minute. Going back to what John was saying about our knowledge, etc. My background was in, after many years in BT, was designing digital telephone exchanges with pure logic circuits. So you've got that on one side of your brain, that's the left brain taken care of, logic circuits, and the right hand brain, you're doing dowsing, healing, palm split, all the other stuff. So keeping that together, without one side overriding the other, is quite difficult. But what I did find is, one side will work and the other side will just throw in the odd question, etc., just to check where you're going. So when we're writing business plans for films, is one of the things we actually do, the logic side says write a nice firm business plan, and the right side, a pure intent one of forcing a line between two inanimate objects up here just by thought power alone. I can see you all looking around thinking we're on a TV show here, aren't we? This is what we're going to do. The other aspects that I find, and it goes back to what John was saying, is it's knowledge that we've got. And I think sometimes when we actually look around at things, there is that knowledge there, and it's very easy to ignore it, let it go, and it's gone. So that's why I like doing it. I work with, we did a political thing, you may still see it around, it's on the telly at times, called Bite to the Ballot. We use a lot of young interns, and I've had them all out. We came back from Cardiff Assembly, and I stopped the minibus at Avebury and had them wandering around in the dark with dowsing rods, and I was just fascinated by the whole thing. You know, so they've gone away with that idea. I don't say you should take all these young people out in the dark and lose them. Although, you know, sometimes some of them. But in actual fact, it's when I take them there, show them, and then they've got it up there. Even if they don't use it immediately, they want to use it up there. So, what we're going to do, like I say, we're going to set up 3 demonstrations. And it's always an experiment. I'll make that point now. Just up the road from here, you've got Ray's throwing in odd comments and things just to make it a bit more marketable. Things like that. So when I'm doing things, I'm thinking, yeah, that's the logical way of doing it, but what am I actually looking at? When we actually look at the terms we use, whether it's alignments, sight lines, dragon paths, spirit paths, ley lines, and so on, all of those terms are rather wonderful. And as you probably know, and found to your cost at various times, in certain situations, they've been the subject of either discussion or outright argument over a pint as to whether they exist or whether it's our imagination or not. And I've had all sorts of discussions like that with people. My view is what you see out there now and what you go around and measure photograph and so on, is the finished product. What I'm going to be looking at is how do they set them up in the first place? How do they produce these alignments? And I'm going to give you I'm going to demonstrate 3 ways of producing earth currents here. First one's going to be using an inanimate object. The second one's going to be using 2 broom handles and 2 volunteers that I've yet to pick from the front here. And the third one's actually going to be